Sarah stood by the kitchen island, a pregnancy test strip lying like a white flag between us. "It's Travis's," she said, her voice flat, barely a whisper. The air went thin. I felt the floor drop from under me, leaving me hanging, exposed. Her eyes, usually so soft, were unreadable. I sat on the thin mattress, the cold cement seeping through the uniform. The light bulb overhead hummed, a constant, low reminder of where I was. It was a hell of a place to land, all because of choices I made and choices made for me. Mostly, though, it was because of Travis Olson and Sarah. My gut tightened with a familiar, stale anger. Days in here blurred into weeks. It gave me too much time to think, to replay every dumb decision, every moment that led me down this particular road. I remembered the afternoon Sarah told me. We were in the kitchen, the sunlight doing its best to warm the linoleum. She held the stick, small and white, a thin blue line glowing on it. My first thought was simple joy, a flicker of something pure I hadn't felt in years. Then a quick arithmetic ran through my head, a calculation of days and weeks. The goy curdled. The timeline didn't fit. Not with me, anyway. She didn't meet my eyes, her gaze fixed somewhere on the chipped paint above the stove. "It's Travis's," she'd said, just like that. The words were simple, but they landed heavy, settling deep in my chest like a cold, hard stone. It wasn't the baby itself, it was the name, the man attached to it. Travis Olson. The name tasted like rust. He'd been a thorn in my side since we were both small enough to scrape our knees on Mrs. Peterson's playground. First grade, I remembered his finger, small and pudgy, pointing right at my face. "Look at Dale," he'd said, his voice a sing-song taunt. "He's got more freckles than a leopard." The other kids had giggled, a chorus of tiny, cruel sounds. That was it. The first cut. Not deep, but it broke the skin. It wasn't just the freckles. It was everything. If I got a B, he somehow always managed an A. If I made the junior varsity basketball team, he always made varsity and usually started. He always had to be better, or at least he had to make sure everyone knew he was better than me. He had a way of looking down his nose, even when we were the same height. The fight started small, shoves in the hallway, accidental trips on the playground that weren't really accidental. They grew with us. By 8th grade, they were serious. We met behind the old gym after school. No one else around, just the two of us in the scent of damp earth and old brick. He threw the first punch, a wild swing that caught my ear, ringing it. I saw red then, a hot flash behind my eyes. When it was over, he was on the ground, spitting blood into the dirt. My knuckles ached, but a kind of raw peace settled over me. That was the last time we fought with our hands. After that, he learned to fight smarter, dirtier. Like the time he planted my student ID at the town skate park, right next to a fresh graffiti tag on the old water tower. The cops called my parents. I'd been home all evening doing homework. It was lucky I had an alibi, a clear phone log from talking to my grandmother about her garden. He just wanted to see me sweat, to see me squirm. Or Mrs. Henderson's 6th grade science class. She was droning on about photosynthesis, her voice a low hum. Travis was behind me in the last row, barely visible over the backs of the chairs. Then a soft, wet sound broke the quiet, a fart noise. Mrs. Henderson stopped mid-sentence. Her eyes narrowed. She scanned the class. I knew it was Travis. I also knew he'd already prepared his innocent face. So I reached into my backpack, pulled out my own identical rubber squeeze toy, and made the same sound. Her gaze snapped to me. I just stared back, unblinking. She didn't know what to do. The moment passed, she just sighed and continued. Travis kicked my chair under the table. A silent message. His family had money. Everyone knew that. His dad owned the biggest construction company in 3 counties. Travis had a new car every other year, sometimes even twice a year if he wrecked the first. When he got his BMW Z4 in high school, he made sure to park it right next to my beat-up Ford Ranger in the student lot every single day. The Z4 looked like a sleek silver bullet next to my faded blue pickup. But the girls, that was the real game. Any girl I talked to, any girl I looked at twice, Travis would be there. Smiling, charming, pulling out that money for dates and gifts. He wouldn't even necessarily want them for long. He just wanted to take them from me. He took Lisa Miller, then Sarah Peterson, who would later become my wife. It was a pattern, clear as day, a way to chip away at anything I might hold dear. Then Brenda May came along. She was different. Smart, funny, with eyes that crinkled at the corners when she laughed. I made sure to keep it quiet, our dates, our conversations. We'd go to the diner out of town, to the old drive-in theater nobody went to anymore. I thought I was being clever, outsmarting him. Prom was coming up. It was a big deal that year. I'd saved my money from working at the WOW station every penny for weeks. Bought the tickets, 2 of them, folded neatly in my wallet. I had a speech plan, something simple, honest. I wanted to ask Brenda May. I pictured us dancing, away from everyone, just her and me. I found her after school, by her locker. She was usually all smiles, but that day her face was drawn. She wouldn't look at me directly. "What's wrong?" I asked, my voice a little too sharp, the joy of my secret plan already fading. She twisted her hands together. "Dale, I already said yes." My stomach dropped. "Yes to what?" The words tasted like ash. "Prom," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Travis asked me. The tickets in my pocket felt like lead weights, heavy and cold. I felt for the small silver ring I'd given her, a cheap thing I'd found at a flea market, engraved with our initials. It was on her finger, small and insignificant. "Give it back," I said, my voice flat, devoid of warmth. She started to cry, silent tears tracking down her cheeks. She pulled it off, pressed it into my palm. It felt cold. I didn't say another word, just turned and walked away, the sound of her quiet sobs following me down the hall. The hatred I felt for Travis that day, the raw, bitter taste of it, settled deep. It was a hunger now, a need for him to feel what I felt, to lose what I had lost, maybe more. The hallway still echoed with Brenda May's quiet sobs as I walked away. My chest felt hollow, but underneath the emptiness, a spark of something sharp ignited. A dark, ugly idea began to form. I rounded the corner, and there she was, Jenny Lee. Travis's on-again, off-again girlfriend, known for her sharp wit and even sharper tongue. She was leaning against the lockers, her blonde hair falling over one shoulder, laughing at something another girl said. I slowed my pace, feigning casualness. "Hey, Jenny Lee, I said, a slight pause before her name. She looked up, her smile faltering a touch. She wasn't used to me initiating conversation. "Dale," she replied, a question in her tone. I just shrugged, a picture of nonchalance. "Heard Travis asked Brenda May to prom," I tossed out, as if it was common knowledge, a piece of gossip just floating on the air. I watched her face, the smile vanished, replaced by a flicker of confusion, then a tight line around her mouth. Her eyes, usually so bright, dulled. I didn't need to say more. I just nodded and kept walking. The hook was set. Later that afternoon, she found me by my locker, her face set. "He really asked her?" Her voice was low, tight with a mixture of disbelief and anger. "Brenda May?" I just looked at her, my expression carefully neutral. "Yeah, heard it from Brenda May herself. She's going with him." Jenny Lee pressed her lips together. I could almost see the wheels turning in her head, the sting of betrayal fresh. "That son of a bitch," she muttered, not to me but to the worn metal of the locker. Then she looked at me, a sudden glint in her eyes. "You going to prom, Dale?" I shook my head. No date. A slow smile spread across her face. Not a warm smile, but something colder, sharper. "Well, you do now. I need payback." Prom night, I rented a black tux, tighter than I liked, but it felt right. Jenny Lee showed up at my door in a shimmering red dress, her hair pulled back, a single silver necklace at her throat. She looked like a movie star. My parents, who usually just nodded, actually stared. On the drive to the school gym, she was quiet, but when we walked in hand, the noise seemed to dim. Heads turned. Everyone saw. Me, Dale Miller, with Jenny Lee, the most popular girl in school, and Travis Olson's girl. I saw the looks, the whispers. A rush of something powerful went through me, something close to triumph. Across the room, Travis stood with Brenda May. He hadn't seen us yet. He was laughing, his arm around her. Then he looked up, His smile froze. His face went white. The color drained from him, leaving him looking like a ghost. He said something to Brenda May, then started toward us, a desperate urgency in his steps. "Jenny Lee, what are you doing, wah?" he demanded, his voice low but sharp enough to cut through the music. She just looked at him, her chin tilted slightly, a small, knowing smirk playing on her lips. "I'm with Dale," she said, her voice clear, unapologetic. "Looks like you have your hands full." He tried to grab her arm, but she pulled away. "You're going to regret this, Jenny," he hissed. She just laughed, a bright, brittle sound. I caught a glimpse of Brenda May then. She was standing alone, watching. Her face crumpled. The realization must have hit her, seeing Travis's desperate scramble, Jenny Lee's cold retaliation. She was just a pawn. I saw her parents appear, their faces etched with concern. She didn't even look at Travis, just turned, her shoulders shaking, and walked out, her parents following close behind. The night was exactly what I wanted it to be. After the dance, we drove out of town, away from the watchful eyes. She gave me directions, a small motel on the edge of the highway, the kind with flickering neon signs. The room was clean enough, a cheap bed, a faded floral comforter. We didn't talk much. The air was thick with the unspoken, the shared understanding of what this was. Payback. And it was good. In the morning, the light was gray through the thin curtains. She dressed quickly, her movements efficient. Before she left, she leaned in, kissed my cheek. "You're a good guy, Dale," she said, her voice soft, almost warm. "Thanks for tonight." Then she was gone, leaving me alone in the quiet room. I went home feeling light, almost floating. The world seemed a little brighter, a little more just. Monday morning, I saw them. Travis's car in the student lot, and Jenny Lee getting out of the passenger side. She was laughing, her hand on his arm, just like before. It was exactly as I expected. I just smirked, a small, knowing curl of my lips. It didn't matter. The victory was mine, even if only I knew the full story. Graduation came and went, a blur of caps and gowns, proud parents, and endless speeches. I was headed to Georgia Tech, a long way from this small Midwestern town, a long way from Travis Olson. I wanted to escape, to breathe air that didn't smell of his privilege and my resentment. Travis, of course, was off to Harvard. A building there, I heard, was named after his grandfather. The world, it seemed, was rigged. Years passed. The architecture labs at Georgia Tech became my life. Late nights, endless blueprints, the smell of graphite and coffee. That's where I met Sarah. She was in my thermodynamics class, always sitting in the front row, taking meticulous notes. She had a quiet intelligence, a steady way about her. We started as friends, talking about problem sets, grabbing coffee between lectures. It was easy, comfortable. Eventually, comfortable turned into something more. Dinners, long walks across campus, lazy Sundays. I didn't rush it. We moved at our own pace. She was kind, patient. After a few years, we decided to get married. A small wedding, just family and close friends. I built her a simple cedar swing for our backyard. I really did love her. 5 years went by, steady and good. We talked about kids, about a house with a bigger yard. It felt like we were building something real, something solid. We talked about family, about a bigger yard. I thought we were on the same page, building a future brick by brick. What I didn't know was that Sarah had already started a family, just not with me. She had kept that part to herself, a secret she nurtured in the quiet spaces of our shared life. It was a Tuesday evening, supper dishes still on the table. The late spring light was fading, casting long shadows in the living room. Sarah cleared her throat, a small, nervous sound that pulled me from my thoughts about a new project at work. "Dale," she began, her voice a little too soft, a little too even. "We need to talk." My heart gave a little jump. I looked at her, searching her face. A baby? Was this it? Was she finally going to tell me? A warmth spread through my chest, a quiet anticipation. Then came the words, delivered without preamble, like a punch to the gut. "I'm pregnant, Dale, but it's not yours." The air went out of the room. The warmth in my chest turned to ice spreading through my veins. It felt like 1,000 tiny knives, each one twisting, methodical and precise. A cold, sickening shock washed over me. draining the color from my face, leaving me feeling hollowed out. I just stared at her, unable to speak, unable to breathe. My mind raced, trying to find footing, trying to grasp what she had just said. It couldn't be. Not with us. Not after all this time. Then she said the name, the one I already knew, the one that had haunted me for decades. It's Travis's. The old hatred, buried deep but never truly gone, flared anew, hotter than ever, a searing fire in my gut. It wasn't just Sarah's betrayal. It was Travis's again. Always Travis. Always finding a way to touch my life, to ruin it. Sarah started to cry then, quiet, controlled sobs. "I'm so sorry, Dale. Please forgive me." She began listing reasons, excuses. "You're always at work. I was so lonely. You never noticed me. You were always so busy." Her voice was a low murmur, pleading. I listened, but the words sounded hollow. Lonely? Neglect? I worked to provide for us, to build the future we talked about. I worked because that's what men do. I saw through her excuses, a chilling clarity cutting through the shock. It wasn't loneliness. It was a cold, calculated deceit, an elaborate lie woven into the fabric of our home. She didn't look lonely when I kissed her goodbye in the mornings. She didn't look neglected when we shared quiet evenings. Then the next confession. And it kept happening, even after I knew. Even after she knew she was pregnant. It wasn't a mistake, a moment of weakness. It was a sustained, deliberate act. The love I thought I had for her, solid and true, shattered into a million pieces. She had chosen him, my lifelong tormentor, the one person I hated more than anyone in the world. She chose him over me, over us. "Get out," I said, my voice barely a whisper, but laced with an icy resolve. "Get out of my house." I couldn't look at her, couldn't stand to see her in my home, carrying his child, carrying Travis's child. My home, my life, tainted. She stopped crying, her eyes suddenly hardening. "No," she said, her voice surprisingly steady, almost defiant. "This is my house too, Dale. Half of everything in it is mine." She gestured around the living room, to the furniture we picked out together, the pictures on the wall. Her words hit me with another jolt. She wasn't just staying, she was staking her claim. She wasn't remorseful, she was strategic. My anger, simmering just below the surface, boiled over. I felt trapped, completely and utterly broken. There was no escape. She sat there on the sofa, still looking strangely calm, her composure unnerving. "This is my home," she repeated, her voice firm, "and I'm not going anywhere." The words hung in the air, a chilling declaration of her intent. My world had just imploded, and she was just sitting there, waiting. The shock eventually faded, leaving behind something much colder, much harder. It wasn't just about getting a divorce anymore. It was about tearing them down, both of them. Sarah, for the betrayal, for choosing him, and Travis, for everything. For the freckles, the cars, Brenda May, and now Sarah. My hatred for him had been a low hum for years, a constant background noise. Now it roared. I knew I couldn't win in court. Travis had family money, lawyers on retainer, a network of influence that stretched further than I could even imagine. He'd bury me in paperwork, bleed me dry with legal fees. The house, my home, would become a battleground, and I'd walk away with nothing but debt and a deeper sense of injustice. No, this wasn't about legal victory. This was about payback. Deeper, more painful payback. I remembered the student ID planted by the graffiti, the fart noisemaker in Mrs. Henderson's class. He always played dirty, always found a way to hurt me without getting his own hands too messy. Now it was my turn. A darker, more dangerous idea began to coalesce in my mind, something beyond public humiliation. That wasn't enough. It would be satisfying for a moment, seeing him squirm, but it wouldn't last. Travis was too arrogant, too insulated by his wealth and position. He'd weather a scandal, maybe even spin it into some kind of twisted triumph. No, I had to hit him where it truly hurt. His wallet, his company, his legacy. That was his jugular. Sarah was still in the house. Her presence was a constant, sneering reminder of what she'd done, what he'd done. She moved through the rooms with an unnerving calm, as if nothing had changed, as if she hadn't blown my life apart. Every glance at her pregnant belly was a fresh wound. Every shared meal was a silent scream. I fought the urge to lash out, to grab her, to shake her until she understood the depth of the damage. But I knew that path. It led to jail, to losing everything, to becoming the very thing they wanted me to be, a broken man. And that wouldn't do. I wouldn't give them that satisfaction. I remembered Travis saying it once, years ago, after his dad had taken over some small local business, crushing it under his heel. My mom always says, Travis had sneered, if you're going to fight, always go for the jugular. His mother, a society matriarch known for her sharp wit and even sharper business acumen. The words came back to me, clear as day, and I took them to heart. Olson Industries. That was the jugular. It was a massive operation, construction, real estate development, even some government contracts. They were the biggest player in this small Midwestern town, employing hundreds, shaping the landscape. They were everywhere. And I, Dale Miller, was a software engineer. Not just any engineer, but one who prided himself on understanding systems, finding vulnerabilities, building things, yes, but also understanding how they could break. I started thinking about their systems, their networks, their data. How much of their business was digital now? Financial records, project bids, client lists, proprietary designs. All of it stored on servers, accessible through networks. Every system had a weakness. Every network had a backdoor, if you looked hard enough. I began to meticulously formulate a plan, piece by piece, late into the nights after Sarah had gone to bed, or sometimes before she even came home. My laptop became my confidant, my weapon. This wasn't just revenge, I told myself. This was justice. Justice for the years of petty cruelty, the constant competition, the way he'd always tried to diminish me. Justice for Brenda May, for Sarah, for all the women he'd used. And justice for me, for my broken home, for the life that was supposed to be mine. The psychological toll was heavy. I stopped going out, stopped seeing friends. My work suffered. I called in sick more often than not, feigning colds or stomach bugs. My world shrank, consumed by hatred and the intricate details of my plan. Sleep became a luxury, dreams haunted by Travis's sneer and Sarah's betraying eyes. The silence in the house, the empty spaces where our life used to be, filled with the hum of my laptop and the growing darkness in my mind. My mind became a cold, calculating machine. The planning for the cyber attack was meticulous. Every detail considered, every contingency mapped out. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment burst of anger. This was a craftsman at work, driven by years of simmering resentment and a fresh, agonizing wound. First, I needed to disappear digitally. I acquired a handful of burner phones from different towns, paid for in cash. Then I set up a labyrinth of untraceable, anonymous internet connections, routing my signal through multiple servers in distant countries. It was tedious work, but necessary. Every precaution was a brick in my wall of anonymity. I spent countless hours, day and night, dissecting Olson Industries. Their public filings, their press releases, even old news articles about their IT department from a decade ago. I studied their network architecture, their security protocols, their vendor relationships. I learned their server names, their IP ranges, the names of their IT staff from LinkedIn. I built a detailed mental map of their digital kingdom. My ambition went beyond simply stealing some data. I wanted systemic disruption, massive financial damage. I wanted to hit them so hard, so precisely, that they wouldn't know what hit them until it was too late. I wasn't just taking pieces, I was dismantling the whole machine, bolt by bolt. The breakthrough came with their legacy HR system, an old clunky piece of software they had probably tried to migrate away from, but never fully decommissioned. It had a vulnerability, a backdoor left open from years ago by a disgruntled ex-employee whose forum posts I had stumbled upon. A forgotten crack in the foundation. That was my way in. Late nights blurred into early mornings. The only company I kept was the glow of my monitor and the bitter taste of black coffee. My anger, a bottomless well, fueled me. I moved through their systems like a ghost, mapping, probing, learning their routines, their habits. I was inside. I breached their financial systems first, not with a big, obvious withdrawal, but with subtle manipulations. Small reroutings of funds, minor adjustments to account balances, just enough to cause confusion, to plant the seeds of chaos that would blossom later. Like a slow-acting poison, it would spread through their ledgers, making everything suspect. Then I coded a sophisticated logic bomb. It was a piece of malware, dormant and hidden deep within their core operating system, designed to detonate at a later date. It would corrupt critical databases, scramble project timelines, and bring their entire construction schedule to a grinding halt. Maximum impact, time for when they were least expecting it. I siphoned off sensitive company data, client lists, proprietary designs for their new housing developments, and secrets for future projects. I copied everything, gigabytes of information that represented years of their hard work, their future. It was all mine now, stored on encrypted drives, replicated across secure cloud storage. To protect myself, I put in place a dead man's switch. If anything happened to me, if I was arrested, if I disappeared, if my heart gave out, the stolen data would automatically go public, sent to news organizations, industry watchdogs, their competitors, a digital atomic bomb set to detonate if I was touched. A grim satisfaction settled over me with each successful step. Each line of code, each bypass of a security measure, felt like a small victory. It wasn't joyous, not exactly. It was cold, deep, and satisfying in a way nothing else had been for months. I knew the risks were immense: jail, ruin, forever being branded a criminal. But the need for revenge, the hunger to make Travis pay, completely overshadowed my fear. It felt like the only path left, the only way to reclaim some semblance of control over my shattered life. I cleaned my digital tracks meticulously. No breadcrumbs, no IP addresses traceable back to my location, no identifiable patterns of activity. The attack would appear as an external, untraceable assault, shielding me from suspicion, from accountability. They would never know who did it, only that it was done. As the final preparations neared completion, a quiet voice in my head urged me to consider the cost, not just to them, but to me. But I pushed it down. What was the alternative? To lie down and take it? To let them walk away unpunished? No. Some choices, once made, cannot be unmade. Stick around to the end to see how life's costly choices unfold. The first signs were subtle, almost imperceptible to anyone outside the company. Olson Industries started experiencing what their internal IT called glitches. Small errors in invoicing, slightly delayed supply chain reports, minor discrepancies in payroll. Then the financial irregularities started to surface. Accounts that didn't quite balance, transactions that vanished or reappeared. Travis Olson, now the CEO, was a public figure. His face was often in the local papers, smiling next to a new development, shaking hands with dignitaries. But over the next few weeks, I saw him in televised press conferences. His smile was thinner, his eyes a little too frantic. The mounting problems were clearly taking their toll. He looked stressed, agitated. I watched from afar, savoring these small, initial victories. Each sign of his distress was a bitter drop of sweetness. Sarah, living in the same house, started to notice my behavior. She saw the late nights, the glowing screen of my laptop in the dark living room, my intense focus. She tried to catch my eye, to start conversations about the weather or the groceries. But I maintained a cold, distant demeanor. We communicated only when absolutely necessary, about bills, about chores, about the dog. The house felt like a shared tomb, cold and silent. One evening, she sat across from me at the kitchen table, her hands folded. "Dale," she began, her voice soft, tentative, "we can't keep living like this. Maybe we should talk about you moving out. Or me." She still carried herself with that air of quiet expectation, as if I should be the one to make it easy for her. I put down my coffee cup, the clink of ceramic against wood the only sound. I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in weeks. "You want me to move out?" I asked, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. After you decided to start a family with Travis? After you brought his child into our home? My gaze didn't waver. You did this, Sarah. You brought him back into my life. You brought his mess into our lives. You chose him. And now you expect me to just pack up and leave? The words were low, deliberate, each one a chip of ice. You wanted this. This is the price. She flinched, her eyes clouding with something that might have been pain or maybe just annoyance. Then it happened. The logic bomb detonated. It wasn't a sudden explosion, but a systematic unraveling. Olson Industries systems crashed spectacularly. Financial records corrupted, project management software seized up. Design schematics turned to digital gibberish. The entire infrastructure ground to a halt. The news spread like wildfire. Immense financial losses, they said. Projects delayed indefinitely. Contracts in jeopardy. Panic gripped the company. Employees sent home. The local news channels reported on it nonstop. The FBI cybercrime division was immediately called in. I watched it all from my armchair, a bitter smile twisting my lips. Travis Olson, the golden boy, on every screen, his face pale and drawn, his composure crumbling. He looked lost, utterly out of his depth. This wasn't just a glitch. This was a digital earthquake. A few days later, Travis made a desperate public appeal. Standing in front of his crippled corporate headquarters, a hastily arranged press conference, he offered a massive reward for any information leading to the arrest of the hacker. His voice, usually so confident, cracked slightly. His legacy, his family's name, was crumbling around him. That night, after the news cycle had wound down, I sent him an anonymous email. Just a few lines, carefully worded, untraceable, of course. Always go for the jugular, Travis. You taught me that. And a PS. The enemy is closer than you think. I pictured him reading it, his brow furrowed, his mind racing through every slight, every perceived rival. He began to suspect me. I knew he did. I could feel it, an invisible tether between us, pulling taut. He probably replayed every interaction, every shared history, but he lacked any concrete proof. I had left nothing, no digital breadcrumbs. My ghost in his machine was just that, a ghost. The pressure on Travis intensified daily. His reputation, his family's legacy, everything he held dear was actively crumbling. He was surrounded by chaos, by accusations, by the gnawing fear that he had no idea who was doing this to him or why. And that, I thought, was truly beautiful. Travis Olson, cornered and desperate, ordered a massive investigation. His corporate security team was joined by external cyber forensics experts, the best money could buy. They scoured every log file, every network packet. They looked for foreign IP addresses, sophisticated botnets, state-sponsored attacks. Days turned into weeks. The reports came back consistently. No external leads. Nothing that pointed to a clear outside perpetrator. The focus inevitably shifted inward. Disgruntled employees, past or present, layoffs, perceived injustices. The net tightened, drawing closer to home. Meanwhile, Sarah's unease with my presence in the house grew. My late nights, the hum of my laptop, the cold distance I maintained, it all added up. She saw my face, gaunt and etched with a grim satisfaction, as I watched the news reports of Olson Industries' spiraling chaos. She didn't know what I was doing, not specifically, but she knew something was wrong, something sinister. One afternoon, I left for a quick errand, forgetting my old work laptop was still sitting on the coffee table, not hidden away in my office. It was a lapse in my meticulous caution, a small crack in the facade. She must have seen it, felt the pull of curiosity or fear. When I returned, she was sitting on the sofa, clutching the laptop. Her face was pale. She had found it. A hidden file tucked deep within a directory I thought I'd locked down tighter. Snippets of the stolen data, a few lines of code, a project timeline for Olson Industries. Enough. More than enough. She looked up at me, her eyes wide with a dawning horror. "Dale," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "What have you done?" She started piecing it together. The inexplicable glitches, Travis's public pleas, my silent, furious vigil. The chilling truth of my elaborate revenge plot was unfolding before her, raw and undeniable. I walked over, stood above her arm. My voice was cold, clear, devoid of warmth or regret. I did what needed to be done. I admitted everything, my motivations laid bare. He took everything, Sarah. First Brenda May, then you. He always found a way to take what was mine. And you chose him. My words were precise, unyielding. This is for a lifetime of his abuses, and for your betrayal. Her fear became palpable. She clutched her stomach, a protective instinct, not just for herself, but for the baby, for Travis's child growing inside her. She saw the extent of my rage, the deep, cold fury that had driven me. The Dale she thought she knew was going, replaced by something harder, colder. "I'll expose you," she said, her voice trembling, but with a flicker of defiance. "I'll tell them everything." I just looked at her, a grim, humorless smile touching my lips. "Go ahead," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "But remember my dead man's switch. If anything happens to me, if I'm arrested, if I disappear, everything I took from Olsen Industries, all their secrets, their client lists, their designs, it all goes public. To the news, to their competitors, to the whole damn world. And then," I added, letting the words hang in the air, "Travis won't just lose his company. He'll lose his family's name, his legacy. He'll be ruined beyond repair." I stepped closer, my gaze locking onto hers. "You brought this upon yourself, Sarah. You chose to lie. You chose him. This is the consequence of your choices." Terrified, Sarah now realized I had gone too far, beyond any point of return. She saw the abyss I was willing to drag us all into. My resolve was unshakable. Later that day, after I had left the house, ostensibly for work, she made a call. Not to the police, not to a lawyer. She called Travis. Her voice, thin with fear, confessed her suspicions about Dale, her role in uncovering the initial evidence. Travis was furious, a primal rage tearing through him. But beneath the anger, a colder calculation began. He saw an opportunity. My revenge could become my own downfall. He instructed Sarah, his voice low and urgent, to be discreet. "Don't touch anything. Don't let him know you know. Just gather more damning evidence, anything you can find. And don't stop until you have enough to put him away for good." Sarah's demeanor shifted, subtly at first. She was still quiet, still distant, but there was a new undercurrent, a tension in her movements I couldn't quite place. She'd try to engage me in small talk, asking about my day or what I was working on. Questions that seemed innocuous but felt like probes. My guard was up, but my focus on Travis blinded me. I was confident in my meticulous cover-up, in the layers of anonymity I had built. She couldn't know anything concrete. How could she? I continued to bleed Olsen Industries dry. Small leaks, strategic drips of information, a crucial bid lost to a competitor, a delayed project approval due to missing documentation. Each one a calculated blow, delivered with precision, slowly, surely draining their resources, their reputation. I saw Travis's face in the news, haggard, his anger barely contained. It fueled me. Travis, for his part, wasn't idle. He leveraged his powerful connections. The FBI Cybercrime Division, already investigating the initial attack, was now working closely with local police, orchestrated by Travis himself. A discreet sting operation was put into motion, designed to catch me in the act. They didn't have proof, but they had Sarah's suspicions, and that was enough to get them watching. I planned a final devastating blow. This wasn't just about financial loss. It was about outright destruction. I intended to leak their most valuable proprietary data, architectural designs for a lucrative government housing project, their entire client database, their next 5-year business plan, directly to their biggest competitor. It would cripple them permanently. I arranged a dead drop, an old-school technique for a digital age, a public Wi-Fi hotspot in a forgotten corner of a park, a specific time, a specific file transfer to an anonymous server I controlled, which would then forward the data. I believed I had thought of everything, outsmarted them all. The perfect, untraceable transfer. Sarah, however, was now a different person. Guilt, fear for her future, for the baby's future, gnawed at her. She saw the cold fire in my eyes, the unraveling of my sanity. She knew I wouldn't stop, and she knew I wouldn't hesitate to pull that dead man's switch if I was caught. So she chose. She provided the crucial details of my planned drop-off to Travis and the FBI. The location, the time, the method. She put a period at the end of my sentence. I arrived at the park, the small, anonymous USB drive in my hand. The air was cool, the evening light fading. I connected to the public Wi-Fi, initiated the transfer. My fingers moved quickly, expertly, as I watched the progress bar crawl. Almost done. Almost over. That's when they moved. Two black SUVs, silent until their doors burst open. Agents in tactical gear, weapons raised. FBI, don't move! They swarmed me, slamming me against the trunk of a car, the cold metal biting into my face. My head spun, the laptop clattered to the ground, the USB drive skittering away, caught red-handed. The humiliation was instant, searing. Flashing lights from police cruisers, neighbors out walking their dogs, staring, whispering. My entire life laid bare, publicly shamed. As they cuffed me, tightening the cold metal around my wrists, I looked up. In the distance, by the edge of the park, partially obscured by the trees, stood Travis Olson. He wasn't even trying to hide it. A triumphant, hateful smirk was plastered on his face. He had won. Again. I was arrested on multiple charges: corporate espionage, cybercrime, sabotage. The words blurred into a long, damning list. The questions started immediately, in the back of the patrol car, then at the station, under harsh fluorescent lights. Hours later, I heard it on the news. Travis had already orchestrated a press conference. He stood there looking tired but resolute, a picture of the innocent victim. He spoke of my vindictive nature, my unhinged revenge, the cruelty of a scorned ex-husband. He played the part perfectly, expertly turning my carefully planned retribution into his own redemption. He was rebuilding his public image on the ashes of my life. The steel door clanged shut, a final definitive sound. Here I sat, back in this cell, just like in my reflection, but now for real. Stupidity with a capital S, I thought. My own damn choices. The hatred for Travis, for Sarah, still burned, a low, persistent fire, but it was mixed now with a bitter ash of self-reproach. The legal process was swift, brutal. The evidence against me was overwhelming. Sarah testified, her voice clear, portraying me as a dangerous, vindictive man consumed by rage. Travis followed, detailing the catastrophic financial and reputational damage to Olson Industries. My court-appointed lawyer, a tired man named Peterson, was powerless. The mountain of cyber evidence, my digital breadcrumbs, was too high to climb. I saw it clearly then, with a cold, almost detached clarity. My desire for revenge had completely consumed me. It had led me right here, to this square room, this narrow bed. I was sentenced to a lengthy prison term. My life irrevocably destroyed. My home, my career gone. My freedom, gone. News filters slowly into these walls. I heard about the birth of Sarah and Travis's child. Another gut punch, another stark reminder of my utter defeat. I paid a price. Was it worth it? I asked myself that question every day, every night. The answer was always murky. A lingering, gnawing sense of injustice persists, a phantom limb ache, even as I acknowledge my own hand in it all. The cold, hard reality of this Midwestern prison cell is my permanent existence now. No redemption in sight. Just a quiet, deep resentment and the crushing weight of my choices. A tragic end to a lifetime of bitterness.